Hello, welcome and thank you for coming to the first part of our three-part workshop. This workshop over the next 3 days is designed to help navigate the call for art world. Today's day 1.
Our day 2 will be with November 17th will be with a juried panel where the jurors will come in that have done previous calls and what they look for. So you can kind of get an idea of both sides, both what the gallery is looking for, what jurors are looking for, and then how to present your work. And then day 3 is kind of putting everything together. It will be how to submit your work properly in the proper format based on the call requirements, how to actually present your work. So if you're working in two-dimensional work, how to frame it properly, how to wire it properly, and then how to bring that to said gallery, whether it's shipping or if it's local, how to bring it and properly have it ready for display.
First, a little bit about me.
My name is Cheryl. I am the owner and curator of Mouse House Gallery, who is presenting and organizing this event.
I have been participating in the call for art shows for over 10 years.
I trained in studio art, primarily focused on photography. I graduated from Oakland University in 2013. I then pursued a Master's of Museum Studies from Johns Hopkins University during COVID. So I learned how to curate and design art shows, which is why I have an art gallery, and then how to navigate research and things like that.
A professor of mine at the time had a flyer about entering a local call for art. Intrigued and excited about being a fine artist, it piqued my interest. I am not sure what call it was for or which gallery, but I do remember entering, not knowing what to do, but thinking I did. Lo and behold, I did not get accepted. Of course, I was deflated a bit, but I spoke more with my instructor, who mentioned a little about what could have happened. I remember submitting a lot of different types of pieces. I was learning photography and I had a couple of series in the works, so I submitted something from each series, not strong pieces, but ones I liked. The reason this could have been the reason to not be accepted is because I was submitting things across a broad subject base. It may have looked like I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't. So, with that, my instructor then suggested looking for local galleries to become a member at. This way, I could learn the gallery world while also strengthening my portfolio. I joined the membership, Detroit Center for Contemporary Photography, because they had an annual members show which guaranteed every artist would have a piece in. By doing this, it helped remove the jitters of applying for shows, and I was then building the confidence needed to withstand the rejections that came with submitting to call for art exhibitions. The first show I was accepted into was not a member show. It was the Garden Party show with the Detroit Artist Market in 2012. This time, when I submitted my work, I made sure to pick images for my strongest series. I had 2 pieces accepted into that show. Now back to the subject at hand. What is a call for art exhibition and why should I find it important? A call for art is an exhibition that a gallery designs to build their artist list for future shows. Mouse House Gallery, for instance, held 2 call for art shows this past year. Both were by invitation only.
What I was trying to do, because being a new gallery owner, I have a very small artist base. Most of the artists I worked with in the past were ones that I graduated with in 2013, and a lot of them aren't making art, but I was like, I'm trying to get, reputation for Mouse House, along with building more exhibitions. So I enlisted the help of some of those artists as others to recommend for these calls. And the 2 calls, one was a photography only show and another one was on portraiture.
I was then able to accept artworks by artists I have worked with in the past and make new connections with artists I have yet to work with, but I really enjoy their creativity.
Call for art as a gallery owner is important because we are looking for future artists to be able to show and work with. By creating these calls for art, we are opening it either to a select group or general public to kind of broaden our artist base, so to speak. It's also a great way for galleries to then see who works well with us and who doesn't. Meaning, do they follow directions? Are they actually looking at what the requirements are for the calls, or are they just submitting whatever they want to submit? And not doing the step-by-steps. I try to make it a point that half of the people I sent these invitations to were artists that I liked their work, but I hadn't worked with them yet. Try and see if this could be a relationship in the future for either a solo show, a group show, or an artist that I can then recommend for other galleries to use. So it's trying to network and bring everyone together. I was under the misconception that when creating art and getting into an art gallery, it was who you know and how you knew them to get your work in. I don't like that. I don't think that's fair to artists that aren't being connected to the proper channels, so to speak. So that's also kind of why I created Mouse House, is to help both the artists themselves and the public to see their art and engage with art that they might not have known if they hadn't come to that show. Art should be for everyone. It should be accessible to everyone, and artists should be able to show their work where appropriate. For me as an artist, the main thing that you have to think about with your own work is, what do you see for yourself? Do you want to have artwork in a gallery like Color Inc. and have shows curated, or are you looking to be an artist that primarily works through festivals? So it's navigating what you see for yourself and then looking for specific calls based on those desires.
Okay, that's great. But I see so many of my art colleagues getting into shows. Why is my artwork not being selected? When looking for a call for art, I'll show you how to navigate some of the websites next. But first, it is important to look at the details.
I was applying to shows based on either a low entry fee or no entry fee, because at the time when I was making art, I had no income. I was broke, I was in college, and so a $30 entry fee adds up, especially if you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 a month. It gets a little cumbersome. So specifically, there's a local art gallery here every year. It's called Hatch Art in Hamtramck. It's a great facility to work with. I have a show called Hatchback, and it's every March or April, I can't remember. It is open, meaning they don't have an entry fee. They have the ability to make it you can donate as an entry fee, but there's no requirement for it. So because there's no entry fee, they get hundreds and hundreds of applications, and it's international as well. Their space is it's not small, but it's limited. So they usually can hold up to 50, maybe 60 pieces of art at a time. So if each artist is submitting 2 or 3 pieces and they get 300 submissions, that's 3 times the amount to go through. And majority of those people are artists might not be chosen. I submitted 4 years in a row, never got in. So I started trying to do a little bit more digging as to which type of shows I wanted to submit to. And the other thing to look at with Call for Arts is when they post the information about the juror, looking at what the juror's background is and what they might or might not be looking for based on their shows, which we'll learn about more when I bring the jurors in next time. If you go to the openings for these open calls, so for Hatchback, I went to the ones that I wasn't accepted into, and majority of them there was no photography. Or there might have been 1 or 2 photography, but everything else was sculpture, painting, drawing. So being a photographer, I understood more than likely it's because I did photography. It wasn't because my art wasn't good. Also, if there was 100 other photographers, it's picking down which ones. So that's when I started looking more at call specific, especially if I want them to accept photography, I need to look for photography calls. Makes sense. I have a couple great links here, which I will also share on the website, and I'm going to go over some of these with you. We have some local websites for where to find calls. I will show you kind of briefly. So this right here is one of my favorite websites. It's actually this first one here. It's called the Art Guide. And again, all of these will be on my website and available. But it helps kind of navigate if you want to look at building your resume to not just be local. So if you're trying to get a New York one on your resume or a California one, you can kind of sort by state and go from there as to what you're trying to navigate. For instance, this one here, It says 14th Annual Open Call Online Art Competition. So it's an online art competition. This one, Light Space Time Online Art Gallery, they are an online gallery only. There's not going to be anywhere to ship to because it's all online. You're going to be sending a very high resolution image for them to put on their website in order to promote your work. And right here it shows entry fee $18 for 1 to 2 entries, $26 for 3 to 5. Many galleries will offer discount for early registration. This one specifically is for early entry and art students. So art students tend to get a little bit of a discount. So that's just this one specifically. Because there's so many, this is going to be the tools to at least start the process for navigating. Because these update so often based on due dates, I had this list pulled a couple days ago, and the due dates for whatever shows were then, everything kind of like changes. So right here, it's in Oregon. It'll actually show you the state that the gallery is in. So if you don't want to ship your artwork, don't apply to galleries that are too far away. This one specifically is, I would be interested in, as a photographer, it's color photography. There's only a little bit of information on this page itself, but it directs you to the gallery's website. So depending on the call and the page that the open call is on, either there'll be all the information or it'll direct you to the website. So the art guide is free to peruse and engage with depending on the call. You can even submit your work through their website. There are other call for entry websites where you have to have a membership too. And that does not include then the entry fee. So this one specifically, Cafe, which is callforentry.org, you have to sign up as an artist, and you also have to sign up as the gallery that's posting it. The nice thing with callforentry.org is you can specify to what type of call you want. So you can go to festivals, and it will show you the festivals that you can apply to. This next one here, Art Fair in the Square, it's $35 for the entry. Again, each call is going to give you their information. So I mean, it all depends on what the gallery is asking for in these specific calls. So that's why reading the calls are so important. That really boils down to your specific artwork. Do you want to be in festivals or do you not want to be in festivals? I personally did not see my work in festivals only because walking the festivals, I saw so much photography. So there really wasn't going to be something that set me apart from the other ones in order to pay back the booth fees. Sometimes starting in those circuits with the festivals is a great way to build up collector relations with your artwork. My known collectors going to festivals because they knew one of the artists there. So they went to see that artist and they saw other ones at the festival. So they might not have gone if that other artist hadn't been in there. Sometimes you can see who has these calls on Call for Entry's website, and then you can go to that gallery's website and see if they have the call available and kind of try to bypass that registration fee. Sometimes. Can't guarantee it. So some local avenues for showing your artwork. Art Detroit Now is a great tool to see events that are coming near you. Art exhibitions that are opening. This kind of shows you what artwork or art shows are around. If there's a gallery that you want to work with, but you don't know how to even navigate communicating with them, see if they have a show coming up or an exhibition coming up, and go and actually see the space. That way, if they do have an open call that you want to enter, you can see what size space they're working with, because that might determine how many pieces they accept. If it's a smaller space, there might be restrictions as to how many pieces get in. Open calls are great, again, for both the gallery and the artist to start building a relationship with each other, and for artists to start building their resume. So after you find your open call and you start reading through the requirements and whatnot, what are they asking for specifically? There are many galleries where they do not want sawtooth backs on their frames, meaning these things up on the screen. Mouse House Gallery does, it's fine. But depending on the walls that the gallery uses, that hardware is not necessarily appropriate for hanging. So they require wire, and it needs to be wired properly, which we will do on day 3. But all of this is typically within the requirements of the call themselves. There's also usually a size requirement for your image, and it's not necessarily the image that's going to be used on the website or on the open call. This is just the entry image, and they might require only a couple megapixels or a very small thumbnail. But then if you get in, they then require a high resolution image for the online gallery presentation. So you definitely have to make sure you're reading and following the guidelines appropriately. The main requirement I do for open calls or call for art is I ask every artist that's submitting a piece to label their files in a very particular way. So I want their artist's first name and last name, and then underscore title of the piece, underscore price, underscore. That way, when I'm organizing the artwork, it's by the artist, and everything kind of gets labeled, and it's a little bit more organized. If I'm getting 30 submissions from 30 artists and all of them are image 206, image 206, it gets lost in the shuffle. And it's a very easy requirement to do. You can even just click on the image itself and you can rename it. Others will require that the pieces that you are submitting cannot be displayed at another gallery at the same time with the call if accepted, or you cannot have submitted it to another open call within the same time period. So if I have, for instance, let's say the artist here is also submitting a show and it's the exact same sunflower piece and it's accepted in both shows, what is she supposed to do? Take one off the wall and move it? Now someone comes in and sees that and it's an empty space on the wall. So that's kind of why they try to reduce that. Also, it keeps the hype up for you as an artist. If you go into one gallery and you see an artwork by an artist that you know very well and you really like that piece, and then a month later you go to another show and you see the same piece. You're not seeing the range of the artist, you're just seeing the same piece over and over and over again. So to an artist, it can hinder you a little bit if you're sending in the same pieces over and over again. And as a gallery, we're not seeing what you're able to have a wider range of your portfolio available for people to see physically or on an online gallery. There's 2 shows that I actually recommend every artist who wants to lengthen their resume to. One is called Roco 6x6. It is a fundraiser type show for Rochester art in Rochester, New York. This specific show, though, every single piece that is sent into the gallery gets displayed. Every single piece. But it is a fundraiser for the gallery, meaning you're sending your work in, they get the sale. It's $25, but you get it on your resume. That's where it comes down to, what are you looking for as an artist? Are you looking to make sales, or are you looking to lengthen your resume with, I've now exhibited in New York, I've exhibited in California, because I entered these shows where everyone gets in, but it's a fundraiser. The nice thing with them is if you're local, they do an event with the schools where kids will come in and they'll design 6x6 squares and those go on the wall. So it's a nice dynamic for artists that are starting out, and it's a great community event for that city. The other one is called Snap to Grid. It's in Los Angeles. That they do something very similar where it is a grid type show. Both of them are a size requirement. Snap to Grid I haven't entered in a couple years, but I believe they're either 6 inches or they might be 8 inches, but they're also a specific size. Also, it's a square. That being said, there are also some open calls or call for art that are based on memberships, meaning you have signed up for a membership with the gallery and they have an open call that are specifically for members. when I first started out, the Detroit Center for Contemporary Photography, every year they had a membership show, and every member that submitted a piece was in the show. So that's how I wanted to start building my own artwork base. So I looked at the memberships of galleries that I wanted to be a part of and which ones I could afford. So at the time that I was first starting out, I wasn't part of the Scarab Clubs. Their annual membership, I believe, is 100 or 120. The Detroit Artist Market was 30 or 35. I could afford that.
There's a call for art that I partnered with Bowers. It was obviously all farm-related type of a show. Sometimes galleries will do shows with other organizations. So this one specifically was to help benefit the farm and bring awareness to the farm.
Where did you exhibit there?
They had a tent set up, and this was the first time they did it too. So it's kind of, sometimes organizations, when they really want to try something, the first year or two, they might be like, okay, this didn't work, let's try something else next year. The cool thing with this specific show is the first day I had actually borrowed a lot of easels and stuff because we weren't sure how we were going to display. And then by the third show, they had built these beautiful pallet walls for me to hang up the hang up the work. And the only time I needed an easel was for something really, really heavy because it was outdoors, and that last day was very windy. It's tricky on promoting these calls because I actually sent in the call for art to Art Detroit Now, but because it was through a different organization, it was at the farm. The first time I submitted it, it didn't get into the publication. I don't know if it was because, more than likely, they just had a lot of entries or submissions for their newsletter that it just unfortunately fell down the side. But then, like, how else am I supposed to promote that type of show? Because it's not in an art gallery. It was at a farm. Sometimes open calls can be very confusing as well as artists. So this one specifically, it shows the requirements that it cannot be larger than 36 by 36. It can have any type of backing, essentially, for hangability. Sawtooth wire is fine. But what else do they want? Like, for me as an artist, it was very confusing. It's like, okay, so we just go and take in our artwork. Sometimes if you've seen a call like this and you really don't understand what they want, before you send in work or take your work to them, email them. Most of them will have a contact information that you can ask them what they are looking for. Reading the call is the most important thing, and making sure you're following exactly what they're saying. So it's all on, it's really your own mental game on what you've envisioned for yourself and what you want to do. Thinking about what you want to do as an artist. Where do you see your work going? Do you want to be part of art groups where they're doing shows throughout the area, or are you looking to be by yourself and you want to be in shows at the Scarab Club, or if you want to be in shows at establishments that are fine art specific? Do you want to be in festivals? It's really what you as an artist want for yourself. I can't answer that for you. The biggest thing that I learned is just because you aren't being accepted into shows doesn't mean your artwork's not valued. So, you survived part 1. Day 2 is going to be with our jurors, and before the jurors get to talking, I will go into a little bit of a discussion on the gallery side on submitting artwork and what we were looking for. So that I will actually do like a mock jot form entry and show you what that will look like on my side and what it will look like on yours, and how to navigate just submitting your work. I will then invite the jurors. That's going to be a little longer of a day, so the jurors will then come in and give their information.
With that, I will now end the presentation, and we will now open the workshop to questions and discussion. Thank you.
Do you have to have like a website and Instagram and all of that for people to find you? where I'm chasing them, like, do they come to you if you have that big online presence?
It
doesn't
helps.
matter.
It helps to have an online presence. For instance, as a gallery, I went to the Franklin Art Festival, and I was trying to find artists. I had an idea for a show, but I didn't know enough artists that worked in that specific theme. Or it's a show that's coming up in 2025. It's all on patterns. I knew 2 artists, but I wanted 6 artists. Well, how am I supposed to find 4 more artists if I don't know their style? So I started navigating festivals. It's free to go in and look at the art. And I found, going through different booths, artists that kind of piqued my interest, and they had business cards.
The website and not just...
And websites are huge. If you don't want social media, at least having a website, because me as a gallery, if I want to see your work, where am I supposed to see
So
it?
it's best to start with the website, and then later on, if you want, you can add the social media.
Social media helps. I found this one on Instagram. So that's kind of the benefit of social media, is sometimes these stores will only show their open calls on Instagram.
In 2013, it was you needed to have a portfolio and you needed to come to a gallery and present it to them. You don't do that anymore. Now it's pretty much all email-based, and that is to start the process of communicating with the gallery. When the gallery starts connecting with you, they will then ask you to bring in samples of your work to look at, depending on the gallery.
Websites are expensive to get up and going.
But there's some ones that you can do for free. So
Oh.
there are some places where you can actually have a free website. Wix, W-I-X, is you can have a free domain with them. There's also, they have it to where you can pay for the website and then you have your own domain. So it depends on what you're looking for. The free one is backed by Wix, so it'll be whatever your artist page, let's say it's mine, it's cherylmoss.com/Wix. So like it always has the Wix as part of the website because they own it essentially. But that's great to start giving out your artwork to galleries.
Okay.
So
That's their starter website.
yeah, that's at least a great way to start the website. At least that's what I did. That being said, like I was saying, when I was going and picking up all these business cards, I had I think like 20 or 30. It starts to become overwhelming when you don't remember necessarily who you're talking to. So going back and looking at those business cards and typing them in either into social media or the website, if all they had on their card was their name and phone number, I don't remember their artwork. So if you don't have a website and you don't have social media at that time, making sure if you have a business card, put some sort of artwork on there, because that way they at least be like, oh, I saw this piece, now I remember who it is. There are some places where they will help build your website for you. For instance, Eric here photographs artwork for local artists, and he does also help with website design too. But it also is a fee and things like that. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But at least to get that high resolution photo, if you aren't able to do it yourself, navigating local places that will photograph them for you, because having a good image when you're submitting your work is really important.
You're supposed to date it, or somebody told me
It depends.
Don't date it anymore.
It depends. It depends on the call. Sometimes the call will be specific and has to be created within the last X amount of years, so therefore they're going to ask for a
But
date.
you need the date on the front, or?
Not necessarily. It's going to depend on the call and the galleries themselves.
I've seen some artists change their name. They have like instead of using your own name, they might have like Wolfgang Gang, that.
If they have a specific name that you're submitting it as your artist name. I have an artist colleague where they have 3 different names. One name is for their local tattoo artist. They go by one name there. They go by one name with their painting, and now they're doing photography, and they're another name with their photography. The reason he did 3 different names is because he had 3 different Instagrams. And his photography has a separate Instagram account, so he wanted to connect the 2. So if someone looked him up, they could find his Instagram. The next thing is, which galleries do you want to work with? If you've gone to spaces and you're like, this is something I want to show my work in, email them first, see if they have what they require as an artist by yourself, if they require a proposal, samples of your artwork, join their newsletter, join their email list. Galleries will have on their websites when they have upcoming shows, and including open calls. So really paying attention to what they're posting on their website, so then you can enter the artist call if they have one.
What size of body of work do you need before you could approach a gallery, like to have aside from call to entry, putting a couple of pieces in, but if you want to approach a gallery, how much artwork do you need?
So that's going to depend on the gallery themselves. That's going to come with your initial email to them is, I'm interested, I've seen your art, your space, and I really think my artwork would work well there. What do you require from me as an artist to show you my work?
So that's your preliminary.
Correct. Amanda Koss is a local artist. She does a lot with community outreach. So she works with Crane Detroit and a couple other larger organizations. On her website, though, is opportunities for artists to show their work. So this one specifically, it's for the Community Arts Gallery that is held within First Merchant Bank. It's in Ferndale. So this specifically, when you go to the page, you can submit your artwork. And what she does that's a little different than open calls is she will curate group shows for these specific organizations or specific locations. It's another way to get your artwork out there.
Always the same jury or
No.
different people?
Every year is someone different. And majority of the time with Call for Arts and juried shows, typically every call is with a different juror. Part of that is for the gallery to then rotate their type of artwork too, based on what the juror is selecting. So it's an interesting dynamic between gallery and juror, and what is going to be in the show, because you might not know until the jurors make their selection, and then it's like, okay, now I can see what the show looks like. Whereas when a gallery is just curating an exhibition of their own and they invite 4 or 5 artists, they already know your artwork.
So should you always look at who the juror is? Like if you
Yes.
choose...
Recommendation I had when I was in school was to research the juror, but it discredited me because I was looking for jurors that were photographers and thinking that because they were photographers, they would accept more photography. Sometimes looking at the juror at least helps you understand maybe their background in art or where they started out or things like that, to try to come up with just an understanding of what they might look for. The other thing is making sure that when you are submitting work, that you're submitting the best of your pieces. So making sure that the work that you're selecting to be shown is not piecemeal, but it's also not your experimenting pieces. Meaning, when I was first starting with painting and doing acrylic, I was just trying to understand what the paint was doing. Those pieces I would not submit to a show because I didn't know what I was doing. Down the line, I have a series that is all on facial features. So I have an eye, I have a nose, I have a mouth, I have an ear. And those all go together because it's a face.
I suggest that if you submit to a show, particularly if it's a juror that you've heard is prestigious or really high in their field, like a figure show, so it's someone who teaches figure at CCS, they were the juror and we submitted work. Often they will have an artist talk, and the juror will talk about both the show, but also what they were looking for when they selected their work. And it can be really instrumental to hear them talk about what they were looking for. And you'll find that it varies a lot by juror.
If you sign up for the free email from Right Now, most of the time if there's an artist talk associated with a show, either at the opening or sometime later, it'll be listed. So you can go down through not just what shows are open, but what events, what artist talks
Or juror
that
talks.
sort of, yeah, juror talks.
And a lot of galleries will also have email lists or newsletters where you can sign up for it, especially if it's a gallery that you want to work with. Sign up for their newsletter or their email, because that way you're on their list of receiving when they have open calls, when they have something specific that you might be interested in, like an artist talk with the juror.
Do the jurors do a talk before they do the call for entry, or
So the talk
simultaneous?
is during is after the show has already been picked. The show is finalized. The show is on display. The show is now open to the public. There's usually an opening or an artist reception that invites the artists to come and interact with each other and with the public. And then usually, depending on the length of the show, it could be the following week, it could be 2 weeks later, or mid exhibition time, where they'll invite the juror to come and speak.
So you listen to the jurors for the next time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's a way of
Familiarizing yourself with different jurors.
Exactly.
For future.
and understanding that, hey, they received 10 submissions that were all blue, like use the color blue, and they had to just pick one of these 10 or something like that. So it could be something where it just the luck of the draw, unfortunately. Usually they're not looking at the name when they're picking the show. They're looking at the work. So
Better shows are blind juries.
It sounds like that there are artists that must be well known, that they would recognize their name.
Well, you don't even need to see their name, you recognize their
work,
style.
yeah.
but that's why it's so important that when you are submitting to work, that you're submitting high quality images, because that's what they're looking at.
I submitted something to one, it got rejected, and I submitted to somebody else and they accepted it. So
Yeah.
I mean, that helped me, toughen
Right,
a
and
little
it
tougher skin, because it's just whoever's.
and you might know the juror. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to accept your work. So it's good to know integrity on the jurors' side of things. For instance, one of the I don't remember which show it was. But I knew the juror was a photographer. So I was like, great, hey, photography buddy, they're going to accept my work. Nope. And it wasn't because I was a photographer. It just, there's other work that was stronger. Or they're trying to find a mix dynamic of mediums. So they had, maybe in their mind, they were like, I want X amount of paintings, X amount of sculptures. It really just depends on the juror themselves and trying to create a wide variety within a show.
But do you ever get people that, like, competitor? I'm not gonna. If you're.
No.
They consider you like a competitor, and so no, I'm not.
Like, how does a juror get to be a juror? Like, how do they get to be a judge? And
So it depends on the gallery. For me, for my shows, I'm still starting out, so my funding is a little limited. So I'm the juror of my own show. But other places will have invite jurors, and they'll have like a stipend for them or something for them to be part of their show. They might be artists that they've worked with in the past for exhibitions that they already have a connection with. I don't know.
And what's the advantage for the gallery owner to have a juror rather than themselves?
Sometimes that juror name is enough to pique interest of collectors to want to come to see.
I do have a general question. I don't know, maybe you did answer it, but like locally, where would you find galleries? Because I moved here like 2.5 years ago. I lived in Michigan years ago. Where do you find the local galleries that would be interested in your type of work? Because I paint, I do portraits, so figurative.
It does.
So how do I find that? Like, how do I?
It does start with research. Kind of seeing who.
Detroit Now.
Art Detroit Now
Yeah,
is a
you
good
look
one.
at those galleries.
The thing with Art Detroit Now is if the gallery doesn't submit anything to them, you don't hear about them. So it really, if they're a business, they're going to at least be on Google if they have a business name, and that you can at least kind of navigate. You can even just Google art galleries near me, and it should populate at least within your general direction of where to start. Navigating their website, kind of seeing what kind of art they've done in the past, what art exhibitions they've done in the past, and if they're posting anything future that's coming, what is that show going to look like?
If you Google like figurative portrait based art galleries near me, would that work?
It would. Yep. It might show you more shows than galleries themselves. Most galleries that I've associated or have known, I don't know any that are medium specific. They're usually show specific. So it's a fine art gallery, but one show they're going to be doing ink drawings. The next show they're going to be doing miniatures. So it really depends on the gallery themselves and what they're looking for to achieve as a gallery. It's a dynamic between what the artist wants to achieve and what the gallery wants to achieve. But it really comes down to research and going to places. I had the opportunity when I was in school. We had a little art group that we went and did art walks. So we picked an area, Ferndale, for instance, and we went to 3 or 4 galleries, and we just went in and saw the artwork. Majority of galleries are open during the week. Most places are closed Mondays and Tuesdays, just like the institutions. But then Thursday, Wednesday through Sunday, they might have gallery hours. So going to their gallery hours and seeing what they have to offer, and just kind of doing a gallery walk.
Sounds like a lot of initial research
Yes.
needed, and then
Yeah.
you know.
A lot falls on you as an artist.
So you have to find art galleries that sort of show similar. I mean,
Not similar, but that tailor to what you want as an artist. Don't go to an art gallery that is not going to promote your work to
Right.
what you see for yourself as an artist. The sites that I've found for call for entries are typically national or international. I haven't found a page yet that is just local art calls. I am working on Mouse House's website to post calls that I see, that it's available for everyone. So then there's a directory nearby. Right now I'm an online gallery, so I don't have a physical space yet. So Eric and Candace, who own Color Inc., are kind enough to share their space with me while I build up shows and able to do these workshops. Mouse House Gallery was formed is to educate and to bring information to artists, because artists should have the information regardless of their background, education, and their style. Everyone should have the information. So it's going to be available on my website, because there's going to be students that might not be able to afford the registration fee, but I want them to still have the knowledge and the information. And it's information that's never really going to change. Call for art, unless there's this unanimous vote within the galleries that they're never going to do call for arts anymore. It's still a valuable tool set, because it's still how presenting your work to the gallery and things like that. Where you've envisioned showing your work, is it at galleries, is it at festivals, is it just with your friends, or is it something you're doing for yourself? And what do you think is your end game with being an artist? Is it something you want to do for the rest of your life and be a full-time artist, or are you looking to just make money? And the main thing I want everyone to take away from today is start small. First, figure out what you want as an artist.